Hi everyone, I'm Cath Crowther, the Regional Director for the CLA in the East. I'm here with Bethany Turner and Matthew Doran from our land use team in London. We're just going to talk a little bit about Groundswell and the policy arena and the various events that we've been holding recently. So having been at Groundswell last week, Bethany, Matthew, what were your key takeaways from this year's Groundswell Festival?
So it was it's a really exciting place to be. And I think despite the challenges the industry is facing, it felt really positive. People are excited. They're talking about what's working for them. They're sharing ideas, they're sharing information, and it's a really exciting space. There were lots of interesting talks on, including ones by the CLA. We had one on nature markets, we had one on messaging, we had one on protected sites. But across the whole programme, you've got such an interesting mix of really high level strategic, what's the future of farming, and then right down to the nitty gritty of how you make a certain practice work for you, or hands-on demonstrations of mob grazing and technology. So it's such an interesting place to be.
Matthew?
I agree. It's a very buzzy atmosphere. I personally found my biggest takeaway was just how critical all parts of the value chain are to scaling regenerative agriculture. So Groundswell focuses on regen ag, and there are loads of farmers talking about their journeys, but also it's a brilliant networking space and policy space, and it brings together all the players across the supply chain, from seed breeders, processors, packaging plants, right the way through to fashion designers using the leather at the end. And so brilliant to interact and hear from all of those people.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to attend many of the wider sessions because I was busy engaging with members on our stand, but that was great, being able to engage with members and politicians to be able to see what's important to them. I guess that it amazes me how many of our members aren't always aware of the free advice that they get as part of their membership. So engaging with them, reminding them that they get advice from the surveyors and advisors in the regional teams, as well as the legal team, the tax team, the business and property teams, and you guys in the land use team as well. So hopefully you were able to provide help and advice to various members there, and reminding them that they can get advice on succession planning, heritage planning, tenancies, compulsory purchase, all of those things. And we managed to add various members, family members and team members to their memberships as well, because a lot of people don't realise that they can add their sons or daughters or spouse or farm manager, etc. Obviously, we did have political engagement as well at Groundswell and over the shows over the last few weeks. So on day 2, we had a session with Steve Reed, Secretary of State. And I guess I'm sorry that government representatives haven't been at many of the shows this year, but it was good that they were at Groundswell. But those shows are good for that relationship with government and the farming communities. And given the strained relationship at the moment, I think it is really important that government officials are out there to engage with the industry and understand the impact of their various announcements. I think that behind the scenes meetings can't replace the engagement with farmers, landowners and rural businesses, and so being at some of the shows is really important. I was at that roundtable meeting with Steve Reed. We concentrated mainly around the SFI and the next iteration of SFI. I'd just come out of 8 committee meetings around the East region and all of the different shows that we've held in the region over the last few months. So whilst there was a buzzy atmosphere at Groundswell, I was clear, to say that all of the announcements have really impacted on the confidence of the industry, and we really need the certainty now. And we've been pushing for SFI to remain broad and shallow, available to everyone with no cap on holding size. we absolutely recognise that we need to show value for money, and there is a limited budget there, but we know that there'll need to be changes. So some options might need to be removed, payment rates reduced, but let's not have a complete overhaul of SFI, which is there to pay for actions that land managers undertake. Government's happy to pay for motorways to be built. Why are they not happy to pay for environmental delivery? And whilst SFI wasn't perfect, it was encouraging a lot of good work. So Bethany, there were various sessions on the private markets, and in our discussion with Steve Reed, we were pushing the fact that public money for public goods is the right way to go, and it is right for the government to pay for those certain actions. The private markets aren't quite there for everyone yet, but hopefully we can stack with sort of SFI being there with government support, and then some of the private markets. How were with sessions on the private markets? What are you seeing in that sphere at the moment?
I think one of the key things, as you've just said, is it's really important that these aren't one or the other. We need private funding and we need public funding. And the best situation for the environment, for farming, for everyone is that you have both, and that your business has those different income streams. And actually that, for example, SFI 3-year agreements, that's fairly short term, but then there are these long-term projects through something like BNG. So it's really, really important that there are both. In terms of the sessions, one of the things I think that was most interesting is you can go to a session, you can hear what people are talking about. And then because we were there as the CLA on stand, members were able to come straight round and say, I've just heard this talk about whatever it might be. Does it work for me? Is this something I could do? What should I think about? And sometimes it's really helpful for them to we can say, have you considered the tax implications, or how does this fit in with your business plans, or even really simple things like if you're thinking of doing this long-term project, does that land flood, and how might that impact what you're doing? So it was really interesting to have that kind of high level and on the ground comparison. There's a lot going on in private markets at the minute, and two of the big things that members might be aware of is there's currently a consultation on removing BNG, or creating an amendment which would give BNG exemptions for minor applications. So essentially, if you're building 9 or fewer properties, you might be exempt from BNG. And that's a really, really contentious issue, because on the one hand, BNG is there for a reason. We want to see the environment protected and improved. And again, we've got members who are looking at these nature markets and really need that income stream, and really want BNG to work. On the other hand, we've obviously got lots of members who are doing developments. Most of our members who are developing will be doing minor developments. And we know how difficult it is with viability in terms of, especially with things like affordable housing. How do you get that project over the line? And BNG is an additional cost. We don't want to see nature made the kind of scapegoat, and we all know that the planning problems are far bigger than just BNG, but it's a really, really tricky issue, and it's something we're spending a lot of time on at the minute. And then the other big policy development is the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, which proposes quite a big change to how developments and nature work. There's things in the bill that we're supportive of, but there's also things we're really concerned by, primarily the impact on nature markets, and also the granting of new powers to Natural England, which I think most members will know is a body which has quite limited resource and has struggled to do all the things it needs to do. So again, that's keeping us really busy. I think in terms of, if you're thinking of entering nature markets, we're always happy to chat, but it's good to just really take it back to basics and think about, are you prepared to make that long-term commitment? Are you happy that if you go into this and the land value changes, or the land is subject to environmental impact assessments at the end, is that something you're okay with? Have you thought about the tax and the legal implications, things like that? And there are some members doing amazing projects and it's really working for them, but I think it's really important to just think about, is it right for your business? And everyone's going to have a different answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely. We interestingly had Richie O'Dowd and Louise Speak from our tax teams at a number of the shows that we've done in the East over the last few weeks, and lots of interesting discussions there around the inheritance tax, obviously, which we're working extremely hard on, but also the tax implications of some of these types of projects. Matthew, any updates from you in terms of the farming, nature, land management policy updates for members?
At Groundswell, the Secretary of State announced the reopening of capital grants, which is a very positive change. They were paused last summer, so it's great they've reopened. In other areas, there hasn't been so much policy movement, but we continue to push our asks and our advocacy of farm reservoirs. We know the Environment Agency are very supportive and have communicated that to ministers, but progress is unfortunately slow in changing the permitting and processes like that. So we continue to push.
Yeah, absolutely. I think water, especially with the dry conditions and early harvest at the moment, is such an important issue that we keep pushing our water strategy and for long-term water resilience, for permitted development rights, for reservoirs, and for the permitting regime, the funding and the planning to align there. Matthew and Bethany, what's your views in, it's a challenging time at the moment. Is there a lot for the farming sector to be optimistic about?
From my side, from what I've heard at Groundswell, I think the big optimistic message is that regenerative farming works. It takes some time to fine tune to a particular farm, it takes bravery to commit to in the face of peer pressure. But all the farmers I heard from at Groundswell emphasised just how significant the impact on their mental health, the improvement on their mental health had been, how much more time they or how much more breathing space they had off the treadmill of inputs. The phrase that I took away was they're no longer being farmed by the input sector, for example, or being farmed by others in the value chain. So I think a really optimistic message is that is that regenerative farming can work and can work really well for business and mental health.
I think another theme that came out or comes out at a lot of events, whether it's Groundswell, whether it's our AGMs and everything else we're involved with, that the value of collaboration, whether that's in a formal way, whether that's just sharing ideas and having a chat, like Matthew said, important for mental health, important for everyone as a community, but also can be really valuable for a business. And I think that's a really interesting theme and something to be optimistic about working with your neighbours and other people you know. And I think that's something really interesting. And I also thought from Groundswell it was really interesting to hear all the success stories, but also people being realistic. They're not trying to sell you something and say, oh, this will be perfect and everything will be fine straight away. People are saying, yes, I had to learn. Yes, I made this mistake, but this is how it's working out for me. So there is obviously a lot to be concerned about in the kind of policy side of things. But I think while all that's going on, the industry and the people in the industry are still helping each other and sharing ideas. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, because it's not a one size fits all. And there's the extremes of regenerative agriculture, aren't there? And it's making sure that you've got a system that works for you, and so that we can continue to produce healthy homegrown food, as well as looking after the environment. I mean, we had a roundtable with the Duchess of Edinburgh at Groundswell as well, which was really good. We were talking about the future of the industry and also education. And we are an innovative industry. We're going through a really tough time at the moment, and the CLA will continue to keep pressing on all of the importance issues. We're not going to give up on the inheritance tax point. We are going to push to make sure that Elms is fit for purpose and supports our members' businesses, that the planning system supports the rural economy and doesn't keep holding back the rural economy, and working on the many different other things as well. I mean, we had Alistair Carmichael, the EFRA Select Committee chair, at our CLA breakfast on day 2, and it was good to hear from him on the work the EFRA Select Committee are doing, and the CLA working very closely with the EFRA Select Committee. And we met with Victoria Atkins, the Shadow Secretary of State, there as well. So We'll keep pushing on behalf of members on the many issues, and just a reminder to members that we are there to help. You can get free advice as part of your membership, so call your regional team on any issues that we can help with. Thanks both Matthew and Bethany, and have a good day.